Welcome to the 500th episode of the new Overlords Podcast, where we talk about video games, and today bring on a special guest, someone that we're very excited to talk to again, Chris Schmidt, who's an industry veteran and game director at Infinity Ward in their brand new Austin studio, and we know him from his days at Bioware, leading game development there. I'm Max, and with me, as always, is my co-host for 500 episodes, Sema. Hello there, Sema.
Hi there, Max. I just can't believe 500. But anyway, I'm so delighted that Chris is here with us tonight. So hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, and congrats to you both. I mean, 500's no joke. That's a run.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Yeah.
Can you tell we're MMO players?
I mean, it's a huge number, but it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't feel that long. I don't know. It's just like something we do, you know. I mean, I've been playing video games for decades. I've been, you know, we just do a podcast.
Do what you love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 500 episodes. The first, 400 or 450 even were SWTOR only, and that's where we got to know you, Chris. And we've always been bad about this. You know, we've been, Stask in the chat room says, feels like 450 tops. But we've always been bad at the big milestones come up. It's like, even like our 100th episode or our, 400th episode. So this has been coming up, and we've been talking about it live on like the post show and stuff. Sema, 4 weeks till our 500th episode. Are we going to do anything?
I would go,
Well, that's a problem for a future, Max and Sema.
I do have a warning for anyone listening, though. The first 500 are free.
Yes. Yeah, that's a warning.
That's how we get you. 500 also, but
we're kind of bad at the pusher thing. The first 500 are free, and then we got you.
Yeah,
maybe 600. We'll see how it goes.
Just a huge sampling,
right.
And then we're really gonna get you after that. But yeah, so we're bad about it. We didn't plan too far ahead, but in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, we said, all right, maybe we should do something. And we thought hard, and we were really thinking, what would be fun to do? We want to talk about games in general. And we got to we've been doing this for forever. So we were like, yeah, we've got this great community, but what do we want?
Right.
How are we going to reward
what would
ourselves?
Gratify us? Yes.
What do we deserve? And we felt we deserved to talk to Chris. Really,
Yeah.
our first idea was, what would be super fun is to get somebody on who knows games. We've talked to Chris. You've been on a couple times before with us. It was the first thing we thought of. We can happen to go.
But also loves games and loves gamers.
Yeah.
And it's really, really smart.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on, for being part of this. And we're going to talk a whole bunch about games today.
Yeah, thank y'all again. And you reached out, and I said, what do I want to treat myself with?
Oh,
Just more time.
See what I mean?
Stop
You're just the best.
making my Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day. We just to be clear for the audience listening, we did ask Chris. Oh, we started scheduling this like a week ago. We're like, oh, it is Valentine's Day. You sure that's okay? He's like, yeah, it's okay. So
my hatred of waiting in lines overrules Valentine's plans.
Yes.
It's good other times.
It's much better to reschedule that kind of stuff and do it someplace that's convenient and fun for everybody.
Right.
All right. What's also fun this week is the news.
Good news, everyone.
We just have a couple news items, things relevant to our interests, and things that we're probably going to be talking about the next couple weeks on the podcast. Skull and Bones, first up. I'm been excited about Skull and Bones. I've been talking about it a little bit. It is released. So it was in open beta last week, and it is now released in early access for 3 days, and then full release on Friday, I believe. Yeah, I think on Friday. So yeah, it's a game, and I think next week's show will be all on Skull and Bones, so we can dive into it then. especially the way I went about going and buying it, which was I didn't buy it. I did their Ubisoft games as a service for $18 a month and got early access, full access to the game, and access to Prince of Persia, and access to Avatar, even though I already bought that one. And so that circles back on that games as a service kind of discussion we've been having a little bit too. It really worked out for me on this one because it was $70, which although I love it and I wanted to continue my journey, $70 sounded a little bit high for what I played so far and what I expected to continue to play. So I know, there's been controversy about games as a service, but this is going to work out great for me. So.
I like the service model. I just hope over time it kind of shakes down so that I don't have to subscribe to lots of the different ones.
Right. Or treat it how I treat a lot of the video
Subscribe
content
for a while.
services, which is I'm always on Netflix, but then I'll turn on Paramount Plus to watch a season of Picard or whatever, and then turn it back off, and then turn on a different one and turn it off. So I could see doing that with some of these other services. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a problem too. I love Game Pass. I'm on the PS Plus, and so I'm playing stuff I wouldn't have normally paid for, which is great. But then the cost is adding up, and you're like, "Oh, is this sustainable?" I don't know. But yeah,
it's not only the cost too; it's the mental drain on your time when you look at all the games and you're like, "Oh, I was going to play that. Oh, I was going to play this other one too." And wait a minute, no, I'm just
But it's since you haven't paid full price for them, it's less. It's almost like less stress, right? And that really adds up. I mean, when you do the impulse purchases in like a Steam library or something,
it's worse.
And $50, and then you don't play them, then that's rough.
Yeah, especially I found this odd solace in the timed demo, which I never thought about before, but that was one of some of those have a timed demo, and I did a timed demo for I think it was like the Hot Wheels game. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And then I ran out of time, and I was like, okay, that's probably saving me a lot of time because I'm about to go real deep in this game, but I'm good. I got a taste. I had fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for saving me from myself.
I sign up for and do a lot of like betas and early access. And especially if I really like the game, I'll buy it, even if I'm like not going to play it, just like to support all the fun I have. Cause I'm playing a lot of these games. Like I was almost done with Skull and Bones, having had so much fun in the beta, leery about the $70, but I played a ton of it and I had a lot of fun. I was like, that felt pretty good. Now maybe I'm done and enjoyed my time, but I feel a little bad now. I want to support the team and support game development. So this is a great twist on that. Another game I love to support, which I paid for once a long time ago and have not paid for since, even if Sean Murray would have let me give them money, which he won't. There's no Cash App, there's no nothing, but it's No Man's Sky. And he posted a tweet this week, like he does, and I've said this before, one of the most brilliant marketing comms, game roadmap communication plans. It's a single emoji. That's how he announces the next expansion for the game. And how can you go wrong with that as your comms plan? So it's a single emoji. There's no you can't like have your expectations dashed because there are no expectations. You can't say you promised blah blah blah.
If there's no horses, I think people will be disappointed.
It's not a horseshoe, it's an omega.
But we're talking about people and their disappointments.
I know people are saying horseshoe update. That's not a horseshoe, that's the omega. So I said, of course, which is the other internet thing to do, omega, the end of it. No Man's Sky is dead. Last update ever. It's over. Omega.
It's a natural reaction.
Right.
It's gotta be.
But you've played No Man's Sky in the past, haven't you?
I love No Man's Sky. It's so great. And I've tried to get some friends to jump back in. And I'm like, have you played lately? And they're like, no, I didn't play since launch. And I'm like, you wouldn't even recognize it. It's so great. It's like it was. I need to be guided a little bit, and so when it first launched, there was less guidance. Right, it was a lot more
Yeah.
open. I'm a sucker for being guided because I turn my brain off half the time I'm playing
I'm with
games.
you. I want to be guided also.
So that when they started adding that literally in like update 1, and now I love it. Like I've probably restarted it 4 or 5 times. I don't even know at this point. It's great. It's a great couch game too. You just like kick back
Yeah.
on the couch and fly
It's
around. Yeah, love it.
it's so amazing how good it plays like on the Steam Deck. And it's also my number one favorite game in VR. Their VR implementation I just think is amazing. And just to get a little bit of that survival feel of you're like walking around on a planet and you're using your mining laser to mine some rocks. It's really tactile because you're pointing the controller, the wireless controllers from the headset, and it feels like you've got that blast, the little laser pistol in your hand, the multi-tool. It works really well with that. I don't know if you've played any of the expeditions. The expeditions are one of my favorite implementations of sort of like a season pass kind of idea. And the expedition you talked about, sort of like a being led through the game, or a little bit of here's what you should do. They're really good about that in the base game now. The expedition does that for the challenge that they've set out for that 4 weeks. And the challenge is different, and there's maybe a little bit of story associated with it. And there's 5 sets of 8 milestones, and you need to achieve each of those milestones. Some of them you need to achieve in order, some of them you don't. And they kind of all lead to the next one. And they're typically tied with the latest content. So when they did the big freighter update, you got a freighter. You start a brand new save, but you get it. You start in the freighter, and then a lot of the milestones are here. Do this new thing that freighters do. So it's a really good way to introduce new players to the game too. But can't pay for it. Can't pay for the expeditions. You can't pay. You know what I will be able to pay for, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we get to the future, is Light No Fire. I hope I can pay for that, Sean. You're not just going to give me that for free.
Yeah, right. If you already bought No Man's Sky, you're just going to get Light No Fire.
I could see Sean doing that. He's a madman, crazy man. Something else I will be paying for, but not very much, and that was sort of the news headline I wanted to call out on Nightingale, which we'll probably talk about in 2 weeks because it'll be out on the 20th. And I did play the alphas and betas and early access or the open beta for Nightingale, and I do like it. Another survival game. But they just came out with a news update yesterday in a Twitter FAQ. We were talking about FAQs, Sema, but here's another FAQ, a Twitter chain of FAQs, and one of them was, what is it going to cost? And it's going to cost $30. And I thought that surprised me. I mean, it's not nothing. It's not $10.
But it's not $70.
But it's not $70.
Heck of a deal.
It feels like it's bucking a trend.
It does.
When
it really
I saw
feels
that,
like it's bucking a trend.
I Googled, are they also going to have a subscription model? Because I'm like,
Yeah, or Cash Shop or microtransactions but I don't think they could, but we haven't seen a lot of evidence of that just yet. And it doesn't really fit that kind of game. It's not
it really.
It's very stylized. It's almost like that Victorian English steampunkish look a little bit. And if you had like a cosmetic cash shop where you could get like different hats, I don't think they're gonna like break their theme and their art style to such a degree that you get like a cowboy hat or whatever.
No, but you could get like a lantern for your belt and like new binoculars that you wear on your eyes, and
Maybe.
I don't know, little steampunky things that hang on. Yeah, yes, they could do all kinds of things with steampunk.
They could. We'll see. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks. I think its style and its look and feel is it's to me one of the weaker parts, because it's really good. It's well implemented, but it's also it's a really kind of a unique style, and more of that, or paying for extra of that style that I'm sort of so on, I can't see doing. So they won't be getting me with the Cash App. Just another tease, because he's teasing us, is Phil Spencer. No news today, but tomorrow, so we'll probably talk about this next week, is everybody's up in arms about what's Xbox future. There's been a couple comments about Xbox potentially bringing games to other platforms like PlayStation. And Phil Spencer has set a announcement, a discussion for tomorrow on Xbox's vision for the future. Leaks from internal notes have said, no, we're not canceling the Xbox hardware. We will still be making Xboxes. Stop it.
Doom and gloom.
But the internet's first response, of course, was, Xbox is dead. Dead. It's dead. It's over. That's what they do. So yeah, be interested to see what he says. I could definitely see Microsoft pushing, trying, doing everything they can to work with Sony and bring Xbox games to every platform possible. Bring it to the Switch. Bring it to PlayStation. That's a very Microsoft thing to do. Microsoft is always, even in the heyday of PC versus Mac, Microsoft even then was the number one software manufacturer for Apple. They've always been, and especially under Satya, just Microsoft everywhere. Let's make good things that people like to use and put it everywhere. Seems like a great plan. Great plan to me. So
I'm no executive, but in
general,
general,
you are Microsoft these days, which is
fun.
I
guess Phil Spencer is kind of my boss now. But in general, it seems to be a good thing when you have more people playing your games.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a hot take. So it's probably, I don't know. But I like what they've done, especially with like the cross-play Game Pass stuff is really fascinating. I was doing it on my phone, playing like Forza Horizon on my phone, which I was like, what am I doing? Is this even going to work? And it was great. So it's interesting.
Cloud, all of that. Yeah, I think that is going to be really interesting. And you're right. The whole consoles got themselves into a problem back in the day that Sony and Nintendo still have to deal with a little bit, was the Razor Blade issue. Take a loss on the Razors, which is the console, and make it up on the Razor Blades, which is the games. Yeah. So that you needed to be making the money back and then having exclusives so that people still are getting value. You're getting value out of the console that you're taking a loss on was kind of important. Microsoft less so in that, having that problem, because they always had Windows gaming as a component of it. So it was less exposure for them there, and I think they're in a great position now to just expand out everywhere that they can. Yeah, that's right. You're Microsoft now. I'm ex-Microsoft. We're kind of like coworkers.
Yeah, we're cousins.
I've been out of Microsoft for like for 15 years now. But I am an alumni. I'm part of the Microsoft alumni group.
There you go.
And also, last news item, which we will definitely talk about more next week and drill into in detail. I gotta mute this website because they had an autoplay on it. But I saw MMORPG wrote up an article today on the dev live stream for Broadsword Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm surprised they covered it. MMORPG isn't that big a publication, but to sort of like cover it live.
That focus on MMOs are super huge.
Yeah.
Good to see. Yeah.
But it looks fun, and the team looks like they're having a great time. They looked like they were having so much fun in the dev stream. It was really, really fun to see.
There was a lot of positive stuff going on in the chat room too, which I thought was really different.
Right. Negative too, but it was getting drowned out by the positive, which is
they did
rare.
Like they put on the slow mode, which they've done before, but this time you also had to verify your Twitch login. And maybe that was just one step too many for people that just came to complain anyway. I don't know. But it wasn't. You're right. Usually the negative. There were so many people having positive reactions, and part of it was that the team looked so happy.
Yeah. Caitlin and Ashley are just, and I could tell this is like their thing. Two things that they sort of announced. One is this date night is sort of going to be like the theme of the 7.4.1 update, where 4 of the characters, the companions that you could have a romance with out of the Coffee Cotet timeframe, are going to have date night content where you get conversation with them, choices. It's sort of each has a unique sort of style of like how they want to have their little date night with you. And so they, you could tell that they were having a lot of fun coming up with that and implementing it. And then the cosplay stuff, which is a total Ashley thing. Her jacket, that was a Theron Shan jacket that she made
Beautiful.
custom.
Yeah.
And
it's a beautiful jacket.
Yeah, and then she made with Jackie the Lana Benico garb for Jackie. But yeah, Eric, Keith, everybody just looked like they're having so much fun and so happy and doing what they want. We need more of that in the games industry. So that was really fun to see. And if I want more operations in the game. Why can't we get more ops content? But if they're having fun and they're doing what they want, I will support that first.
Yeah.
I'll still ask for operations politely then, but I'm not going to be like this is garbage. Doing which is like the 1 in 100 of the mean posts that were going on.
Yeah, like one of the mean chat comments was somebody saying, "Oh, great, more stuff for story mode scrubs. Enjoy." You must have a really bad life, mister.
Right. Yeah. 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 And what do you think this is? This is an RPG, an MMORPG. What game did you think this was? This isn't.
Imagine. It's fun to like different things. And I know it's hard, but imagine.
Yeah. It's not
But
Tetris.
It's
I'm
fun
sorry.
to like things. It's not. Yeah. People think it's fun to hate on things, but it's actually more fun to like things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good timing. I like the Valentine's Day date night. It was perfect. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see more of that. It sounds like it's going to come out around St. Patrick's Day for the 7.4.1 and 7.5 to follow. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about it in the next couple of weeks. And we will. But that's it for the news before we get into trends and what we saw in 2023. Definitely thank you to everyone out there. This podcast is, of course, brought to you by all of you listening. Your subscriptions and audio and video, people just chiming in for 500 episodes now, live in Twitch, in our Discord, people that have been with us for the beginning, people that are new in the past couple of weeks. That's why we do it. It's just been so fun. So thank you to all of you that have sort of sustained us with all of that for a decade now. It does sound long. I gotta stop saying. I gotta back off on that because now I am feeling like it's been going on for a long time. But you can get links to all the ways to join us, including getting on our Discord and talking to us directly at newoverlords.com. And this podcast is also brought to you by Alea Yacht S, our big family-friendly gaming community where Sema and I play and where we got our start with MMO. Well, not got our start with MMOs, but got our start with SWTOR and with podcasting while we were in Alea Yacht S as our community, and where a bunch of us all still play all the MMOs, but especially Star Wars The Old Republic on Starforge. And you can get to all the details of that and join us there and play with us multiple times a week. Play with Stask, who's in the chat room right now, getting ready for Season 5 PvP nights, going to be starting back up in a few weeks. All of that you can find at aie-guild.org. All right. The games, they are a-changin'.
Game changer.
Game changer?
Game changer for
the industry.
Game changer. That's an old drop-in from us. So when did we, I mean, that's probably 8 years old.
Yeah.
But I always like thinking about how much games are changing. I think games did change quite a bit in 2023. So we're going to start there and talk a little bit about that. And I think they're going to continue to change in 2024, and we're going to see some trends, some interesting stuff going on. And I thought 2024 was going to be quiet and slow, and now we're halfway through February, and it's still been full steam ahead, and crazy things happening and fun things happening. So we'll see how that's going to go. But yeah, so Sema and Chris, I've been looking at some of this stuff from 2023. Amazing year, amazing stats out there for what happened in 2023. I knew mobile games was big, but mobile games accounting for 49% of sales was bigger than I thought. So that's like dollars out there. So half of all gaming dollars being mobile games, I guess surprised me, because I think every, in terms of games played, everybody's got a phone. Everybody plays games on their phone. But in terms of dollars being spent and sales happening, I did not expect that to be 50%, and then the rest to be split between consoles and PCs. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I thought it meant when people would say, gaming is a, multi-billion, and I thought it meant console games. I thought MMOs and PC games were a small part of that, but it was mostly console games. I was shocked by the mobile game thing.
Yeah. So
yeah, I was fascinated. So, before we merged with Microsoft, it was Activision Blizzard King, right? And King is Candy Crush, Soda Crush, those guys. And so we would have meetings talk, they would talk about, like revenue for the year and stuff. And I would always just drop my jaw at King. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The adults have arrived.
Right.
It's fascinating though. Like, to your point though, everyone has a phone. This is a lot of what we said in the early VR days, to tie it weirdly to VR, of like, hey, what are you going to do? Are you guys going to make VR games? This is when I was at EA. They would ask that quite a bit of like the CEO, and he would always say, well, for now, we're waiting on adoption. Like, there's just, the numbers aren't really there. There's not a lot of hardware being sold, and once there's enough critical mass, like, then there's a bigger market. But think about it, like the price of entry before in VR was like the price of a PC. And with a phone, not the case. And you can see how that scales like crazy. My other weird observation is, it's phone gaming is so different culturally in a lot of places. My favorite example is when I went to visit Japan for pleasure years ago, and I was fascinated that every generation on the subway, on the public transport, right, is playing games. It's cultural. There's no stigma. There's no, oh, that's for nerds. There's no, everyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, rock on. Like,
yeah.
It was really cool. I was even struck by the ads on TV where it would be like, oh, Final Fantasy Mobile or something, and then it would end with a splash of like, here's a sale on our virtual currency. Which, can you imagine seeing that on a commercial here? Like, it was so acceptable, and everyone's like, yeah, great, okay, cool, a sale. Let's go MTX. So, yeah. Mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge. It is. I mean, there are markets in the world, as you said, sort of internationally, where that's far more than 50% is where people spend their time. And when I see some of these games coming out, I think I need to break my own bias and stigma. I see like, oh, here's a new MMO that's being produced, and it's going to be cross-platform to mobile, and I'll go, it's one of those crappy, mobile MMOs, and it's not that anymore. Phones these days, the kind of games that you can put on them, the kind of quality of live service product that you can make available is incredible. And so for it to be cross-platform to mobile, it can be a, top of the line, AAA, awesome experience for everyone.
And I don't know if it counts as a mobile game, but I pay $5 every 4 weeks to the New York Times to play their games. I wonder if games, so they have a part of this 184 billion. I wonder if it's more than they get for their journalism.
That is interesting. I mean, there you are paying almost like an MMO subscription.
Well, a third of one, but yeah.
Yeah, but still, yeah, like a little one for that, which is a mobile game, and you might not think about it in that way, but it is. Yeah,
it is a mobile game, and it's partly for convenience that I pay for it, right? Because you can log, I think you can log in every day on your PC and play like the free. Yeah, I think you can play the crosswords and stuff if you keep current. Like you can't go back into the archives, I guess, unless you. I don't know how it works. I just subscribe.
Yeah.
But yeah, like maybe in the future, New York Times will be known as a gaming company, and we'll be saying, "Do you know they used to do news?"
Yeah, they used it. That's
I
really
mean,
interesting.
it's like Amazon, right? Was the bookstore.
Yeah,
And
that's a
now it's
great
like a
example
media giant of
of
streaming and
everything. Yeah,
yeah, wild.
Another, we were talking about in the beginning, sort of the games as a service and the Ubisoft, and there was the comments that were sort of controversial in the past couple of weeks about are gamers really ready to not own their games, and streaming, games as a service won't really take off. The quote was taken completely out of context, but then recontextualized for the people that actually read the actual quote. But it's gamers will get ready for that, and will need to be comfortable not owning their games before games as a
right.
service really takes off.
And this actually makes me think, what is a gamer anyway? Because I was watching this guy yesterday, who's a food editor for the New York Times, and he was streaming Prince of Persia, and he commented that he's not a gamer. And then he went on to say
Au
that
contraire, my friend.
he's owned every Nintendo that has ever come out. And he was comparing, as he was playing Prince of Persia, he was comparing it to all these other games he's played, including original Prince of Persia. And I'm like, yeah, I think we think of something different. Every person thinks of something different when they say the word gamer. And
Yeah.
I think for us, for Max and I, a lot of what we think of is the people who comment on the bottom of news articles, the people that
Yes.
go,
The quote gamer, the yeah.
right, the sort of angry person that hates everything. And I think, nope, I think people are already on the cloud with their games. And the
Right.
people that are complaining about it, that are playing on consoles and PCs, are not the majority
There's
by
people who
far.
play games, and then there's the gamer, the in gamer crowd.
The caricature of a gamer, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. And I spent years on different projects, even kind of diving into anti-toxicity stuff and like how do we do that via game design and reducing friction and all that kind of stuff. And you're absolutely right. I mean, for every population of any game that is being played, the tiniest percent are the angriest, or the people online causing disruption, or the people, right? And really you're not so much worried about, you want to remove that from your community, but not just because of the source, but because of all the bleed over effect, right? And all the other
Right.
people, they're hearing it and seeing it.
Yes.
And then people want to disassociate with that. So that's might be one of the sources of like, oh no, I'm not a gamer, right? That's toxic. And
Right.
it's like, well,
I've just owned every
Right.
console and play games all day, but I'm not a gamer.
Right,
be
because
clear.
I work for a living and I have a family and I'm a normal person,
I'm not a, yeah, I don't live in my basement and rant on the internet and call everything dead and the worst game ever.
Yeah,
But that idea of, do we own our games? Are we comfortable with that? And I want that Brox product, and I've got collector's editions on the back of the shelf behind me. But those are like years old.
I don't want any of that stuff.
In 2023, on the PC, only 1% of PC games were boxed. 99% were digital. Total market, including console, then 95% digital. So we already are downloading our games. We're all very comfortable with the games being very digital. I think we're going to get very close to this idea, and just slide right into the idea of games as a service being comfortable for everybody.
I think the desire for physical game is like a mix of two things. One is like, if I don't have the physical thing in my hand, then somebody's going to try and take something away from me.
Right.
And then the other thing is just, I want the art books and all that stuff, which is a different desire. Has nothing to do with the physical media, but but I think it gets conflated. I want those beautiful art books I used to be able to buy with the collector's edition of X, Y, and Z, and the CD of the music and the story of how the game was born. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a couple of friends who are very passionate about physical media, and most of those stem from it's either an old like collector game, or like this ensures that they can't change it, they can't patch it. So let's go
yeah,
in the
okay.
Wayback Machine to Star Wars special editions. Kind of that
Okay.
vibe of
Yes.
like, oh
Yes.
no, I have the original and I don't need, new scene with Jabba. And that's that's
They-
another like niche thing that's fueling, I think, some of that.
They can't destroy my childhood because I got it right here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is
I-
interesting.
Of course,
Yeah.
none of my computers will play DVDs anymore, but
So in terms of just like collecting things in like a collector's edition of something and having the physical copy or having the original that can't be changed or whatever, that kind of like, I've got this thing I collected. I had someone, back in the day say, "Oh, you have this thing, so you have it on display. You have like a little mini museum in your house, then, right? And you invite people to see these collectors." Well, no. Well, then why do you have it? Why do you care? If you're gonna like put it in a box or just like have it, or you could go to a gaming museum and play that original version of Pac-Man, and you don't necessarily have to own it yourself, and nobody's gonna be that it existed and you enjoyed it. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You
Yeah.
having to own the physical copy for the that one time for 2 hours in 10 years, when you think about it and like pull it out and maybe look at it, is it really worth it?
Look, I used to have my giant CD case in the car years ago with all my
oh yeah,
And
the 500 CD player that was in the trunk.
yeah, and now I'm loving streaming music because
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
have to haul anything around.
And some people say, "What about the things that never made it to MP3 or whatever?" And I'm like, I don't remember those anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Probably there are some CDs that I had that I can no longer listen to, but I've forgotten them.
Yeah, my HD DVDs, because
Oh.
Blu-ray won that war, or my laser discs. Maybe you've got a laser disc of the original unremastered Star Wars. Do you ever pull it out and use it? No.
No, but I can clutch it.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
like vinyl. The statistics on vinyl, and people like the sales are up on vinyl records, but the
Yeah.
percentage of people that buy vinyl versus the percentage of people that even own a turntable is surprisingly skewed.
Really?
Yeah.
I kind of get the vinyl thing because I feel like it's, I don't know, like you were saying clutch, I feel like with vinyl it's more like something I can hug.
Mhm.
I don't have vinyl, so don't get me wrong, but I can sort of get that. It's like a hobby, like a niche. And I guess this could be it. This could apply to like maybe games you could like have like a little 1% version, physical media for the 0.5% of people that want it, and just charge $500 because that's what it would cost to produce a low number, right?
Yeah.
And then you could be that niche collector, and you could have like the vault. And
Here's something that, just to sort of wrap up this 2023 stuff, and then we can talk about the trends that are leading into 2024. But the idea, this makes me think of the difference between gamers and people who play games also, and these lists of the best selling games of the year, the games that were played the most. And if you listen to gamers, these best selling, most played, most covered games
are dead.
are garbage and dead, and everyone hates them, and they're 0 out of 10. It literally gave me cancer. Yeah, because it's Hogwarts Legacy was the #1 best-selling game. Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, Diablo 4. Everybody hated Diablo 4, right? And still hates Diablo 4. Starfield is on that list. Madden NFL 24. No one ever
even talks about that. Yeah.
no gamer would ever mention Madden as a game. So this is what people who play games play. And these are amazing titles. And I mean, Spider-Man, that had a lot of acclaim, and gamers like Spider-Man. But that's the only one really on this. Well, Mortal Kombat kind of was well rated, and Zelda out of the top 10. None of these other ones in the top 10 were sort of like darlings of the gamers, which I thought was incredible. But they're all really good. They're all really good games.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of quality in 23, right? As we're talking about 23. So like Baldur's Gate 3 was insane. Hogwarts was fantastic. Spider-Man, like it was interesting that you were getting really solid ratings, and I'm not a rating guy, like a Metacritic super, that's not the worth of the game is not Metacritic, but you're getting these ratings because the bar has been raised, and you didn't have a whole lot of disaster stories, right? You saw a lot of like quality releases, and oh my gosh, Zelda, oh my gosh, what's next? Final Fantasy was great. So yeah, it was interesting. It was great.
There was a ton of that. There were some of those breakouts. I think Baldur's Gate is a good one that sort of like talk about trends and where they could go. A bunch of high quality stuff and a bunch of, so this interesting, you mentioned it, you sort of got to it, raising the bar. Raising the bar, I think, is a really good, it's a good thing for everybody. But again, with the gamers, I think it creates this problem where then anything that doesn't meet that new raised bar is trash, which I think is the wrong way to look at that. I think instead it should provide the opportunity to say, here's great things that could happen. Here's trends that we could potentially take advantage of. Here's things we could learn. And that's probably what the industry is doing. And you can tell us about that, Chris. But stuff like Baldur's Gate was good in that direction. I think Starfield did some interesting things. And maybe taught us, we'll see about this trend of what live service games versus here's just a game you can go play and you can maybe be done with it. There's huge news articles going on right now of, hey, can you believe 6 months later people have stopped playing this single player game that they bought at launch? Yeah, it's a single player game. They bought it at launch and then they played it. That's the way that works. Nobody buys a single game to play for the rest of their lives anymore. In general, couple do, and I think of Call of Duty as kind of one of those. I know people that only play Call of Duty, have played it for decades, and that's all they play. And again, don't think of themselves as gamer. I'm not a gamer. Like executives in Fortune 100 executives would never admit to being a gamer, but yeah, they play Call of Duty.
Yeah, I think you do see that there are some franchises that are games that really someone's very, very loyal to, and they're not playing a lot of other games. And there's becoming slightly more of those, right? There's Call of Duty, there's probably World of Warcraft, maybe even Diablo now, Fortnite maybe. Just these huge games, and that's not a bad thing. It's great, right? Like I like everyone having a good time. But it's even like Madden, FIFA every year, right? The folks that are doing that either socially or on their own, and that's joy. And I think that's fantastic because, to your point, every game doesn't need to be all things for all people. Even when you talked about fidelity, it's like, you look at a Naughty Dog game and they're freaking gorgeous, especially for what they're trying to do. But do I need that fidelity in Pal World? No, I'm having a good time in Pal World with some in early access with some obvious warts, but I'm loving it, and it doesn't have to be that to be good or whatever.
Right. So a couple of the trends that I saw in 2023 that I think we could continue to see extended to 2024 was some of those. What was a fun game? What is a fun game? And what can we just sort of like build on? So like the retro games and the remakes. I think we saw quite a few remakes, which I was sort of surprised at. Surprised that they were so well well accepted and celebrated. Like the Resident Evil 4 was huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a big thing, and everybody loved it. Alan Wake 2, Final Fantasy 7, all the Final Fantasy remasters. People are, loving those and going crazy over them. What's your perspective on sort of like the remake, remaster, that whole angle on it, Chris?
I think it's great, especially for a franchise. Like, I don't see it as a money grab, basically. I know some people will see it as a money grab, but they invest a decent amount in rebuilding a lot of these things from scratch. And the way I kind of look at it, I used to have this cynical view of reboots of movies. And I'm like, did anybody ask for that to be remade? It was perfect when I saw it when I was 10. But then I think I heard, I saw an interview with a director once that was saying, well, here's the deal. Modern audiences aren't going to watch that movie. It looks old. It looks dated, right? And so what we're doing is we're bringing the reboot isn't retelling the story, but it's exposing this amazing story or this IP to a new generation in a way that resonates better with them. And so I think of it kind of in that way of like, Dead Space is fantastic, but if Dead Space was never remade, would I just skip to Dead Space 2? If everyone agrees that was a fantastic game, and I just wouldn't even play the original. But if we get a remake with all the modern technology and lighting and sound design, and oh my gosh, like it's similar source material, but now it hits even harder and a new generation can enjoy it. I think it's great. Especially the amount of work they're putting into these. These are not, feed it into a port house and then spit out new game with up-res textures or something, right? These are like legitimately being rebuilt and with love, and it's obvious. So I love it.
Okay, that is a good perspective. That's a little bit different than what my take was, and not on games as much, but just the whole idea of remakes in general, especially on like movies. I've always been pretty negative on remakes of movies, and the nostalgia, the nostalgia play, the fan service makes me roll my eyes so hard so many times. Like somebody tells me, "Hey, did you hear they're doing a whatever?" And they're bringing back Harrison Ford, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I want another Star Wars story. It doesn't have to have Han Solo saying, "Guy got a bad." He's gonna say the thing. He said the thing.
He said the thing.
He said the thing. I'm so happy. I don't need that.
Let's cringe cheer in the theater.
But your point about modernizing it to some degree, bringing it
to a new generation.
Bring it to a new generation. I've got kids. My middle daughter is she's 24 now, but she was always this way. She was like, she would never want to watch a movie, even if it was a great movie, if it was like older than like about 8 years old. Yeah. I'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna watch Raiders of the Lost Ark." She's like, "This is an old movie. I'm not gonna watch that." But if it was like if it came out this past week and it was a remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark made so like to sort of engage a new audience, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's good. And you do bring people into that story and that world that wouldn't, like my daughter, who wouldn't necessarily have gotten into it before. Sorry, you were going to say something, Sema?
Well, I was going to say it's also kind of an explanation for why people who were big fans of the original get so broken up, right? Because they're like, it wasn't designed for them. It was designed for someone else. So yeah, it doesn't resonate with them.
Right. And it doesn't take away from what you experienced and your original view of the game. I mean, people do need to, and I need to realize that too. But I don't have to go and see Harrison Ford do the thing.
Harrison Ford saying, "I have a bad feeling," in better lighting is still Harrison Ford saying, "I have a bad feeling."
Right. I'll just enjoy the parts that are like the new story with the new people. And I do enjoy them. I like Adam Driver. I think he did a great job in the Star Wars movies.
Fantastic, yeah.
Retro games. So like 8-bit 8-bit games. In the indie space, these have been huge for years. I think that's because there's a lower barrier to entry to creating those kinds of games. But those even retro style games that are being made by some of the more bigger studios. What's your perspective on that, Chris? Do you think we'll continue to see that just because it's easy to be made by new and up and coming indie developers?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a bit of that. There's a bit of I think artistic expression, which is interesting to me. It used to be in the old days that fidelity was everything. You remember it was even marketing in consoles. It was like 8 bits, we're 16 bits, we're 32 bits, and so everything just had to look better, and it was almost an insult to look worse. And even in PC gaming, everything was pushing, and then we hit this inflection point. I don't know when it was. It was years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, where all of a sudden, and it kind of coincided with a little bit of indie explosion, where we started seeing it first as not only an artistic choice because of dev resources. I mean, it could be one person making a game, but also exploring these really, really cool artistic stylistic choices like Obra Dinn, or these just really different looks that you can't even really get away with in film. It almost akin to the I keep going back to TV, but like the Star Wars shorts, Legends stuff, almost like that, where you're just exploring, right? You're just trying different stuff out, and it's an artistic choice, and it's really interesting. And so I think now people, games are so huge now, bigger than the movie TV industry, that there's enough people that aren't scoffing at that. Like they may have decades ago of like, oh, look too pixely. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Sea of Stars was a huge one this past year, got a lot of acclaim.
Loved it. That was great.
It's both retro in style. It's a pixel art game, but also retro in gameplay too. And a lot of people sort of really appreciated that and wanted that. And I think, to your point, a whole new audiences that never sort of got to experience that kind of turn-based small squad JRPG style game. Bring it to those audiences, like we've been saying.
Yeah, and this is a tiny side rant on Sea of Stars, but one of the things I really appreciated is they also brought some modern design principles along the way.
Yes.
So I didn't go to a town and have to talk to 50 different people to find the one that's going to push my quest forward. No, when I first go to a town, I'm in the rat maze. I can't go anywhere else other than the thing they want me to do, and then it opens up later. It's way less cognitive load on me. It's way less, and I know some people are very nostalgic for that kind of thing of like, I just want to talk to but like, I loved it. I was like, yes, the pacing feels good, but it still feels classic, but it feels modern, right? It's streamlined. It's not, it's respecting my time, let's say.
Yeah, respecting my time. I cringe when I hear that, because that's another gamer thing. It means something different to every single gamer who says it, which then makes it one of those, perilous objectives for a game developer. But yeah, but it does. It doesn't waste. It's not a clear time waster. No matter how much it respects whatever it respects, it doesn't waste your time.
Yeah, you can have the time clicking on every wall, and right, you can do that, but they're not going to lead you into a bad time. They're going to connect you to the story, and then when it's time to open up a little bit, then okay, do your thing. And I don't know, I appreciate that. So it takes thought and care to pull that off well.
I agree. That's sort of like what we were talking about earlier. I appreciate a little guidance like that. I always felt like when I finished something in any game and went into a new town and there were like 10 NPCs standing around, I just felt like, okay, I'm done playing for today.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
What am I going to do now? We have dubbed 2024, we talk about trends, we have dubbed 2024 the year of survival games, which is ironic because the week after we dubbed it 2024 year of survival, Blizzard announced that they're canceling their survival game. or it was rumored.
That is how far-reaching our effect is.
Well, they realized they can't live up to the hype that we've created. Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
But we already have had a couple interesting survival releases: Enshrouded, Pal World. I think Nightingale is coming out in 2 weeks. I have always been a big fan for years now, and they've really only gotten big in the last 3 years or 4 years or so of survival games. Valheim really kind of like made it mainstream, but you've had games out there for a while like Ark Survival and Conan and some really good ones that have been out for a while. What is your perspective on survival as a genre? And do you think so? Just two things. Do you think we're gonna, which we probably will, see more survival games? But also, do you think there's an opportunity to take the fun parts of survival and then like roll that into other games that are just like non-survival, more of the MMOs and the RPGs in general?
Yeah, I
see
think
that going.
you will see hybridization there of genres. The classic example is kind of Destiny 2 is kind of like a mini MMO-ish. And they merged, kind of classic MMO mechanics into a shooter and exposed a new audience to both, right? But I agree with you. I think it kind of traces back to those old Minecraft days, and it's like, oh, they're really onto something, and then that kind of took a life of its own. But when people went to, again, a streamlined version of, well, no, you don't have to discover every recipe, or we're going to give you a little bit of guidance. I think you started seeing people play more, and then you started seeing. I played a decent amount of V Rising, and people are adding these interesting mechanics, the day night, the PvP, the base build. So yeah, I think so. I think there's something really intriguing there. There's a lot of once you build the foundation of the content, whether it's like systemic, procedural, whatever you want to call it, then players are now creating the content. It's kind of the classic argument for PvP. It's like, well, if you include PvP in your game, there's always variety, and I think it's similar with the survival. So yeah, I absolutely can see pulling out the fun parts, or which is hard to say, right? There's different things for different people, but yeah, and I think it worked really well in an MMO in a living world.
Yeah.
That'd be
I think
great.
it's kind of an accordion, right? Because I feel like survival already has pulled elements from other games,
Yeah.
and just kind of really leaned into them. Like, people have been wanting for years MMOs for crafting to mean more, but crafting was always linked to gearing, and gearing is linked to balance. So making crafting meaningful is really hard. How about if we make a game that's just all crafting, but then it has to have some kind of challenge, right? So then you put monsters in it, and then
Right.
you have to shoot them. So if your shooter skills are good, you can, it's already an amalgam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, so
yeah,
maybe
that's a really good point.
maybe what studios learn from survival games can go back into their games, and that's why I say it's like constantly happening, in and out, in and out.
The Enshrouded. So last week's podcast, or 2 weeks ago, because we took off last week, but it was about Enshrouded. That does make me think, Sema, spot on. Enshrouded brings in this sort of like the story, the
Yeah,
you're learning about the story of what
the
happened
sort of
in the world,
RPG-ishness
and
of it. Yeah.
RPG and story, that some of the classic survival games don't have. There just isn't that much of a story. I mean, Ark kind of has a story, but it doesn't really. You're not really like playing the story when you play Ark. Valheim doesn't really have a story. You're just sort of like in this afterlife, surviving in the land. But Enshrouded definitely has a story, and you're sort of like learning and discovering the story along the way. You're right, brought in RPG into the survival landscape. Yeah. I would love, well, just because I loved survival games so much, I would love all my favorite MMOs like Star Wars: The Old Republic to bring in some of those survival elements. Even just housing on its own, when it's done really well in an MMO, I really like, because it feels a little bit like that creative outlet that I can get, that I get a ton of in a survival game. I can get a little bit by having really dynamic housing that I can do what I want with in an MMO. I like it when it's live service. And I like anything that I'm going to do that has that really creative element to be an open world and like an MMO environment so that I can show other people. I want it to live on even when I'm not there. I don't like when stuff decays. I want to be able to like be gone for a month and come back and have my stuff there. But I want to show other people. I want to show it off. I want to build a big castle and then invite people over to my castle to come see it. We do this with our housing and our strongholds in other games. So I hope more of that happens. We'll see, because there are some elements to a bunch of these games where the transient nature of the world, like either wipes or invasions that come and like break your stuff or decay, does add an interesting gameplay element, because it's okay if everything gets destroyed, because starting from scratch is some of the most fun parts of a survival game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where you've got that dopamine cycle that hits a lot, because every stick you pick up then matters, and there's sticks all over the ground and you can pick up that stick. Whereas sort of at the end game, when you've got everything, you've built everything, you just sort of stand around in this world that you own, and everything you can see, as far as your eyes can see, I own, but I'm bored. So
it's almost like you see a lot of you've seen kind of roguelites blow up also, and some of these survival games have some roguelite. I would argue some of that dopamine also. So, like your example kind of reminded me of, okay, if something comes and destroys your base, but I've unlocked all these recipes and now I can use my metal axe instead of my wooden axe.
Mm-hmm.
And now it just feels so much more satisfying because I'm accelerated in the quote unquote boring part at the beginning, right? But that's kind of a little roguelite-y, right? I've got this meta progression sort of like dripping me through, but I'm happy to reset in that world. And I don't know, there is something really satisfying about that.
that is interesting, that roguelite. And that definitely is the case when your stuff gets wrecked, or you get, like, if you play PvP survival, that happens all the time. You get wrecked, but you bring your skills at least, and you bring all the recipes that you've learned. They can't take that away from you. Other games like Rust, which is really fun, but Rust has like monthly wipes, and it's wipe. You don't get to bring anything forward. And you're right, maybe that would be a good twist, a little bit of persistence.
Why do they do that?
Because, well, they bring new things into the game, and the game is built around starting from zero, and in the PvP that is more fun when somebody hasn't taken over the map and controls everything.
So it's like a reset.
Yeah.
It's so that you don't have to balance anything.
And that's a very PvP focused game, but yes.
Yeah.
Because there's, if you kind
Which
of
is
like
why I
win
know
the
nothing
map.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Other weird trends. And this gets to our discussion about the global market and mobile. I thought this one was interesting. Are we going to start to see competitive multiplayer on mobile? Internationally, this is something that happens more and more, and Fortnite certainly is very mobile, and you can have Fortnite tournaments, and Fortnite itself is somewhat of a tournament. What's your perspective on this? I said I had my bias in thinking that, well, if it's mobile and PC, it's going to degrade the PC experience, but that's not necessarily the case.
Fortnite's been going cross-platform. Well, they were doing it before they came off of Apple and Google, right, because of lawsuit stuff. But they were doing that for a while to, I think, pretty good success. I know in Call of Duty Mobile is huge, massive, and that's its own ecosystem though, right? And then they have player numbers to support that. But the gameplay is like, I'll watch some streams every now and then. I couldn't believe I was watch mobile multiplayer streams, but like it's really intriguing to see someone with like a camera on their hands, kind of working a screen. So you see pockets of it, but you've also seen some big players kind of bow out. Like EA divested. They were working on, I think, Battlefield Mobile. Hard to say. Now, for crossplay, the biggest problem, and you see this already with crossplay, is in something competitive, is that keyboard mouse versus controller, which I won't even dip my toe into because that's a toxic pool of opinions. But add mobile to the mix, right? Add that control scheme, and then how do you equalize that? How do you make it a fair playing field? If you're not just wildly successful and you can just have everyone play with the same controller against each other, sometimes you have to cross pollinate, and then how do you solve that problem? Those are the biggest issues, I think. But the cool thing is that the technology now, especially the back end and broadband and cloud, is letting us even talk about this stuff. Like cross progression and cross platform multiplayer is really cool. Like, who would have thought we could even do that?
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That I think you're right to bring in cloud gaming, cloud platforms, and I had that further down the list when we talk about some of the tech trends. But cloud gaming is getting better and better and better, and becoming an amazing experience. More than games as a service, it's even almost like hardware as a service in that case. And if you can have a full experience on a mobile platform, and add a mouse and keyboard then, and everybody gets to play on mouse and keyboard. Just some people are playing on a little phone on their desk. Some people have a full PC with a NVIDIA 4090, or on a console, and it doesn't matter. That it might be a place that expands. I want to talk about MMOs, but one little one will sort of flip in here. I don't know if you or Sema, if you've got any opinions in this, but a couple of the lists said fitness gaming is a trend. Is fitness gaming a trend? Is it
Hasn't
though?
it been trying to be a trend?
It has for years.
For years.
Yes,
like Wii Fit was a thing.
Yeah.
But I still hear it come up, and I hear non-gamer gamers say, "Oh yeah, I do." Like Beat Saber is a big one that people sort of like do as like fitness. I guess I don't know.
Right.
No opinion.
Well, I mean, I actually am excited by the idea, but then when I look into it, it's nothing. It's like wearable. It's like Apple Watch, and count your steps, and the exception. Beat Saber is like the exception, but even then, it's not. Or it'll be like augmented reality with your own trainer or something. That is no more fun. That is not gamifying it. That is just having a personal trainer.
I have played a couple VR games that got me a little sweaty. So
Yes,
just
I totally
like
get that.
RPG adventure games.
When Wii Fitness, I had a Wii early on in the days of the Wii, and part of it was I thought, oh, this will be a fantastic, fun way to get more active, and it wasn't.
No.
Not for me.
Well, but you are right. When
apparently
it comes
not for
down to it, a
anybody.
workout is a workout. And you can
Well,
pretend as much as you want, but
some things are more fun, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's ways to gamify it, and gamifying actual workouts is a thing that does make them a little bit easier to do and remember to do.
Right. And if they could, but they haven't really gamified. I'm waiting for them to actually gamify it. And I guess by that I mean that there's rewards that you can work toward that are somehow cool. I don't know what those would be, but that's how every other game does it.
Yeah.
Why is this such a hard nut to crack?
I will skip over that. I've got ideas on that, being into fitness myself, and ways that you can gamify, but it's less about the game part of the gamify, but sort of tricking yourself in various ways that do work for fitness.
For some people.
But a last trend sort of in genres that I wanted to talk about, because I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know, and I don't think much is going to necessarily happen in 2024, but beyond, there are some MMOs that are in development. One that I'm watching closely that I'll be in the alpha on, and there will still only be alpha in 2024, and like the summer or second half, I think third quarter they said is when the open alpha will start, is Ashes of Creation. Then there's Riot's League of Legends, Runeterra World MMO that's supposedly in development, but we haven't seen much from lately. I think I think old school MMO players want an MMO, but when we do get new MMOs like New World, it's very hard for them to meet the bar,
Right.
to get players to commit,
Right.
to bring it to something to new audiences, because new audiences don't get it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's like what Chris was saying for remakes. It's if they make it for the new audience, then the people that have been playing MMOs and saying they want MMOs, it's not what they want.
right.
So I
So
mean, do you even call it an MMO?
yeah. And-
Yeah. No, I agree. And we had this on SWTOR when we launched. It was this kind of back then, WoW was obviously the biggest game in town. And you're not competing with launch WoW. You're competing with year 5 or 6 WoW, right? And that's kind
Right.
of the burden of a brand new MMO. And I think
Right.
everyone's aware of that now, but I mean, I think it is exciting. I'm interested. There's three in Texas, so I'm in Austin, so I keep track of stuff around here that are in dev, that are under, I think, NetEase, but one is is the Warhammer 40K MMO,
oh yeah.
which is from the former head of the Daybreak, which turned into Dimensional Link. Anyway, there's a little lineage there. And then another is there's a sci-fi MMO, is all we know, from a studio from one of the former co-founders of the Bioware Austin studio, actually. So that's interesting. And then one is from, I don't know if you remember Ghostcrawler. He was doing
Yeah.
the Riot MMO, and now he kind of left there, and now he's doing his own fantasy MMO,
Right.
and
Yep.
he's in Texas somewhere. But yeah, that's Greg Street's thing, and like, who knows? Maybe these will. I don't know. I'm excited to see the investment. I agree with you. Like, everyone knows what they're in for when they invest in these things. So
Yeah.
let's
Greg
see.
Street's they've got some really interesting ideas to sort of maybe put a twist on still an MMO, but put a twist on the genre to maybe bring some new, fresh ideas into it that, who knows? Again,
Yeah.
who knows if it'll hook people in, create the critical mass that you need to make an MMO work, and the stickiness that you also need to create an MMO of people that stick around and play and make the world. Because I think one of the things that MMOs require is the meta text community. You need like the people that maintain the wiki and create the guides and run the guilds and do player events, and sort of this long span. And you can't have people around for a launch for a month and then not exist anymore and expect that you're going to get what you need to sustain an MMO world existing as much as you can anymore these days.
Right. You do need a permanent world, but I think people also want to make changes to their environment, which new MMOs coming out right now, I think you're going to have to address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bar has been raised, as we said earlier, right? Like, if I can have a game like No Man's Sky or whatever, like those voxel games where I can terramorph, then now I want to do that in my persistent world. Look, all these other games can do it. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
And I do. Yeah, that's a good point. And some of the games are thinking along those lines, like Ashes of Creation, at least at a town level. Depending on what the players do together, they can build up a town, and it changes shape, and it changes the buildings grow and things like that. So that's maybe a way, but there's a lot of challenges and perils.
Yeah,
around it too.
I don't know what people want that want an MMO. Like,
Right.
I see, like I see a complicated talent tree, and I go, no, I don't want that. But like another MMO player might go, yes, that's what my life is missing.
Right.
It's, everything's too simple now. I want that. I want those
Yeah.
involved choices that I have to sim with a spreadsheet, and yeah.
And
I want
there's always the
action
problem
combat.
what
I
people
don't want
say that they want versus then what they stick around to play.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm that's what I want. I want that to exist. Where are you going to play it? No. Are you going to spend money on it? No, but that's the way it should be.
Yeah, not that
Helping
I've
out here.
ever been in that position whatsoever. But turns out a lot of people want different things. To your point, Sema, like and the and those it's not a players will put it as it's me versus them or them versus me or whatever, right? But as the developer and you're trying to grow a business and you're trying to continue to support the product and make it as successful as it can be, you want to open the doors as wide as possible and get as many different people enjoying your game in as possible. And
Right.
so you have to be eyes wide open when you do that, right? If you over index on crazy talent tree, then who are you shutting out, right? And what's your opportunity cost? All of that stuff. You really have to consider everyone, and no one is throwing you a parade at the end of that process. That I promise you.
Right.
I mean, in the end, I think nothing is more sticky than an MMO. But I think if you're going to make an MMO in this market, you're going to have to be content with it being, maybe it'll go for 15 years, but it's going to be more of a niche game.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm fond of saying that I used to play a MUD, and that MUD is still ongoing, and it has a monthly subscription. That's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
and LOTRO. LOTRO's
Yeah.
still going on. I mean, all the
EverQuest.
MMOs really.
Yeah.
Who knows why isn't Ultima Online still going on? Well, it is kind of.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
Broadsword. Yeah.
The problem is to make the vision of, I think, what a lot of developers would want to make for an MMO, you got to spend $100 million,
Right.
and you
Right.
can't
Well,
have a niche product.
That's why I say it's
Yeah.
if you want to make an MMO, you have to scale it so that it's
Right.
not going to get
Right. It
it's
doesn't. You
not going to
can't
get the numbers that mobile games get.
unless you've got investors that are fine with like a 50-year payback.
Yeah, and embrace early access, like what Nightingale's
Yes.
doing, right?
And that's a trend to talk
yeah,
about.
even Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of people forget it didn't just come out of the gate and everyone was surprised, right? They had a lot of early access, a lot of
Long time.
alpha
Yeah.
testing, and
Well, they already
good.
had wikis and stuff when people started.
Yeah. That's what you do, and that's how you also build that community, like you were talking about, Max, of like getting the people making the guides, and you're growing that organically before you're launching. You're just not coming out of the gate right away and saying, okay, are you entertained?
Right.
So you're
Right.
lowering your risk, hopefully that way, and getting a little organic audience or something. But
Right.
yeah, maybe that's the trend, right?
That's like
yeah.
Palea. That was really a metagame because their Discord and the way they involved players before they even had their first alpha was kind of amazing.
Yeah. The art reveals and the reveal of each character, and it's a very character and
they
sort
had
of
like a million
relationship-driven
community
game.
managers interacting with people in their Discord every day.
Yeah, and people doing fan art for years.
Yeah, and people were fans of that game before they had even seen a shot of it. Never mind had been able to play any of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we promised that this wouldn't go long, and now it's already long. Why don't we pick one more fun thing to talk about to wrap it up? Either AR, VR with like the Apple and the Oculus and all of that, or AI. which do you want to wrap up with, Chris?
Oh dear.
They're both crazy.
I guess let's talk about AI.
Okay. So my perspective on AI, and I would love your perspective too from a games industry side of things, is there's a lot of backlash, and I think a lot of the backlash is at risk of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We had articles come out that were saying, hey, like, is Valve gonna ban AI generated games? And I think this is where there's a whole bunch of confusion. What is AI? Where is it useful? Where will artists use it as a tool to make games better? Versus the thing that people generates the backlash. Where is it going to take people's jobs? So there's AI as tools. There's generative AI that creates art and props and assets. There's conversational AI that can be the NPCs that you talk to, that an artist or a game designer might create sort of the context of the dialogue, and then a GPT model makes it so you can have any kind of conversation you want, but an artist, a designer, sort of set the context. And then there's tools like modal.ai, and we did a podcast with these guys that are about like the game development pipeline and testing. And if you can have an AI tool that your test team uses to hit all of the boundaries and walk all over the map and do all of the things that you cannot hire, there aren't enough testers in the world to hire to do, and it makes games better. Well, that's a good part of AI too. So what's your perspective on AI as those dimensions of AI and the backlash and sort of where things are falling out for you, Chris?
Yeah, to your point, it's very complicated, right? There's a lot of nuance, and I do think, and I hate reading this quote, but it is very true. When all the tech bros say, it'll revolutionize our industry in ways we don't know, I think that's true. A lot of the skepticism or pushback in game dev is mostly around the generative side. And I think with the Valve thing about banning like kind of AI generated games, I think that my take is that's probably closer to kind of like clone games or games kind of ripping off IP in a sense, which you sort of saw when you saw democratization of like game creation tools, and then all of a sudden everyone's making ripping off Mario or whatever, and kind of the implications of that. But that's a little different than other uses. So I can get a little bit into the generative side. Is tough when you're at a company with protected IP. If your IP is in the seed of the generative AI, right, all of a sudden you might potentially lose control of your IP.
Mhm.
If I am at work, like I have to be very careful, right? I can't go onto a public whatever and then uploaded a bunch of images of stuff that's not released yet, and then all of a sudden it shows up somewhere else, and then we don't control that anymore. So that side, I completely get, and usually with artists and creators, that's a big issue, but that's solvable. Like we do have, you can build your own ecosystem and your own non-public kind of space to play around in with that kind of stuff. I do think, and I agree with your previous guest, like we've had solutions for some of that kind of stuff, but it's pretty labor intensive. Like we've had bots that we run around, acting as players around the map and looking for
Holes in the
walls
terrain.
and
Yeah.
holes, stuff like that. And we have used, we didn't really call it AI, but we've used like procedural generation tools for a long time in environment art, for example, if you're building terrain for a world. And the art there isn't in sculpting it, right? There is an art in that, but the art when you're using those tools is in you tweaking the values and right, like figuring out how to get the best result. And so, yeah, I think the positive side of it is, especially when it relates to jobs, this is kind of a random story, but when I was in Munich once and I toured, there's a BMW factory there. And the guy was taking us on this factory tour, and he was like, yeah, we have all these robots, the robot arms. And people ask us all the time, are they taking jobs? And he said, well, no, we want the robot doing the very repetitive task of bolting the same thing in the same way 400 times. Yeah. We don't want them to replace somebody. We want the human doing the cognitively intensive thing, the creative thing, the interesting thing, right? Not the menial thing. And so I think that's where the opportunity is, right? Is using AI to kind of empower us to do that and let us as creators or creatives or whatever focus on other things that wouldn't take up our time, like running around and looking for holes in terrain or what have you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on a few of those different sides there.
I think that's a great take, and I think it matches sort of some of the things that I was saying as well. I completely agree. I used to talk to executives about AI and where it's being used. And one of the examples that I would throw out there about, is AI going to take your job? Is it going to take anybody's job? Is one of the biggest consumers, the biggest purchaser of robots, as you said, and AI-driven robots, is Amazon. And you can look over the years, the number of, the hundreds of thousands of robots and automation and AI that Amazon is investing in to make their retail operation run better, to run their warehouses. However, you can also look at the track record of how many people they're hiring year over year. And it doesn't stop. The trend of people hiring, even though they're hiring all these robots, they're not like leveling off or firing people. That trend of how many people they're hiring and how they're growing doesn't stop. What AI enables them to do and what automation typically enables a business to do is either do things better or scale more, make things bigger, do things faster, higher quality, all of those kinds of things. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to see in the opportunity for in games, if we can get over the stigma of, if you use AI, you're bad for some reason.
Yeah, we've had a press release about this, but we use on Call of Duty, we use AI tools to help with voice chat moderation. Because there's so many matches and so many voice chats going on that it helps actually automatically flag problems and send it to a human to evaluate. But yeah, I mean, uses like that I think can be incredibly helpful.
Finding the signal in the noise, right?
I think
Which just wouldn't be possible
because
without it.
people or a subset of people are motivated by this fear of AI taking over. They hear something like that and they think that the AI is going to ban people.
Yeah.
They miss the part about it's going to surface something to a human who's going to look at it.
Right. Yep. And the stakes are too high in most businesses like that to just rely strictly on AI, like the liabilities, it's too risky. And not because, well, once AI is better, then we'll do it. Well, no, still humans are still pretty great at a lot of things and will be for a long time, but I don't think we're going to be there for a long time with that kind of thing. Until we have an existential crisis in hundreds of years, and then it's another question. But.
Right. You mentioned procedural generation, which sort of skirts the edge of what is under the big AI umbrella, but as a good example of tool sets which have been used for quite a while and are sort of like built into some of the big, Unreal Engine has proc gen tools to create terrain and things like that. I think that's the only way to get some new and interesting games out there that we all want to play. So as we wrap up, we won't do too much of ours. We'll do more of ours next week when we talk about like Skull and Bones and what we're playing. But I know we want to play Light No Fire.
Yes.
As one of those, and they're going to have to use they're masters of proc gen and algorithms to sort of create worlds and create environments.
Oh yeah, because their claim to fame is how huge this world is. Well, not their only claim to fame, but yeah, one of their points.
Sean Murray, who's so good with no more setting expectations on No Man's Sky because he did it wrong day one.
Yeah.
But then broke his own rules with Light No Fire when he got up on stage and said, Earth-sized, giant, immense world, anything you want.
I have two modes of communication, one icon or completely promise the universe.
Yeah, promising the world. So there's that. We won't get to play that for a little while, but I imagine you play Call of Duty quite a bit. So what else are you playing? What are your favorite things to play right now? It's sort of our wrap up.
What are you looking forward
topic.
to?
I've been playing some Pal World. That's my kind of unwindy. I have some Zen games. I loved Dave the Diver is a little game that came out last year that's like a combo of, I don't know, kind of Cooking Mama and then a little bit of adventure. Like, it's hard to describe, but it's a
restaurant, but also like the survival adventure.
I'm still playing like Vampire Survivors is just so satisfying, and it's 30-ish minute game I know I'm in for, and I can get in and get out. Anyway, and there's a game I always tell everybody, if you want to relax and you like a little puzzle game with no pressure, there's this little game on Steam called Dwarf Romantic, and I love this game.
Huh.
It's like a tile matching sort of super vibey game, and I've gotten many of my friends addicted to it, and just
Oh my God.
as a stress-free, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a couple years old, but it's so good.
That sounds like a Sema game to me. I'm gonna go buy that after this.
It's incredible. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Light No Fire. I mean, this year is going to be pretty wild for games, right? I mean, there's huge releases. I'm a big driving guy, so I've been playing some Forza also. I just have to match my mood with what I'm in for, right? I do play SWTOR still every week.
I did not know
So
that.
do we.
Yeah, I'm on Starforge. I used to not be able to say that; it was very secret. But no, I'm on Starforge. I play.
Well, come play with us on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have my little. We have this little group of people I met that was anonymous. I don't even still think they know I worked there. But we run dungeons every week, and it's great. We have a great time.
That's
That's
fantastic.
cool.
But yeah,
But that is one of the great things about MMOs. I was talking about the length of them, but yeah, that you can meet on your group of friends on a weekly thing and do something you like to do. That's awesome.
yeah, I love it. It's social. Do not underestimate the power of social. Right, I've seen it in every game I've worked on. If you can even just look at the metrics, and when most people quit, it's because their friends quit, or when most
Yep.
people try it, it's because their friends are trying it. And gaming is social, and I think that's something that's beautiful about it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I've got the video up here for Dwarf Romantic. It does look.
You feel the
like
zen.
Yeah.
Yes,
this is-
when you
this is
said
looking pretty
tile
good.
matching, I'm like, oh.
No,
Because
this-
one game I really, really miss is Pandora's Box. And it was like puzzles, and then the
Yeah.
reward was like a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Which is
but
a
this is like a
reward.
little. It's just like Settlers of Catan without the. It's like building this little city. This is fascinating. Creative, and there's the creative mode. Huh.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's layered. It starts, and you may not even follow the little suggested rules, and you're just kind of building. But then when you start getting points and unlocking new tiles, you're like, oh, there's a little
points.
game here. Okay.
Points. Now you've got me.
So
Me too. I'm excited. I'm gonna try it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Again, this was a present to us and hopefully everyone who listens as well for our 500th episode. Thank you so much, Chris. It was amazing to get you to come on and talk to us. We like to do that
Thank
every
you.
once in a while. I
Thank
think
you.
this is like the
Thank you.
third time we've had you on.
Maybe,
which is
yeah.
amazing for us. So yeah, thanks a ton. And we'll keep it going. I'm so excited to see what you guys are coming out with too. So we're certainly going to
Yeah.
stay connected to that.
Yeah, thank you, and always fun and super happy, honored you would have me on for your 500th. Again, congrats to y'all. You have to
Yay,
celebrate
thank you.
yourself. I'm glad you decided to pat yourselves on the back just for a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, always fun. So yeah, it's a treat for me to come and just talk about games. I mean, what could be
Excellent.
better, right?
Well, everyone else out there, thank you too. Thank you to everyone that's been around either for one episode, this episode, or since the beginning, which I know there are people that have been around for that as well. All our feed and subscribe links, as always, are on newoverlords.com, and our video is YouTube/newoverlords. Come chat with us in our Discord. That's a really fun place. A lot of stuff going on up there about the games that we're playing right now. That's newoverlords.com/Discord. You can follow on all of the social networks, X and Mastodon and Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram and Facebook. I've got a feed out there that at least says that we're going live, and here's when the podcast gets produced, which is usually the next day. So we'll keep you up to date there too. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.